This bus driver training video covers part 3 of a 3-part video series based on our school bus emergency plan. The 3 parts include Part 1, Basic Emergency Protocols, Part 2, Hazards, and Part 3, this one, Threats and Violence. This Part 3 training corresponds with the 3rd section of our bus emergency plan. It will focus on several different situations involving violence or threats that a school bus driver may be faced with, such as missing students, bullying, child abuse, sexual assault, unauthorized person, intruder, or kidnapping, a threat or suspicious object, an aggressive person or a fight, and situations involving weapons, gunshots, and hostages. It applies to regular school bus routes as well as student activity trips. Use the information in this training to help you assess the emergency situation you are dealing with and determine the courses of action that will best address the threat or hazard you are facing. As always, bus drivers are empowered to deviate from the roles described in this training, including the order of these actions, whenever doing so is likely to reduce the risk of serious injury or death. Let's start with the scenario of a missing student. In certain situations, you may be notified of a student who is missing from school, or from his or her bus stop, or of a student who never made it home. In these cases, time is of the essence. You will need to determine if the student is or was on your bus that day. You may be able to collect information from other students who normally ride the bus with them. If you are already finished with your route, you may need to rely on your memory or the camera system. If you are notified of a potential missing student from your bus route, stop the bus in a safe location. Secure the bus. Shut off the motor, set the brake, and remove the keys. Activate four-way flashers if required. Determine if the missing student is on the bus. Walk the bus, calling for the student. Younger or special needs students may need this extra prompting to respond. This will also give you a visual in case a student is hiding. If necessary, ask other students if they know of the missing student's whereabouts or who they were last seen with. Write down a detailed description of the student's clothing, backpack, shoes, approximate height and weight, hair color, etc., from memory or from other student accounts. Communicate with bus dispatch. If the student is not found by the end of your route, pull the video hard drive for bus dispatch. Now let's talk about bullying. Bullying is when purposeful acts of meanness are repeated over time in a situation where there is an imbalance of power. All suspected bullying or reports of bullying must be taken seriously, investigated, and reported. Bullying behavior can include physical aggression, such as hitting, shoving, pushing, kicking, threatening with a weapon, stealing or destroying property. Verbal aggression, such as teasing, name-calling, verbal threats of aggression, or threats of bodily harm. Social alienation, such as gossiping, spreading rumors, public humiliation, or leaving someone out. And intimidation, threatening to reveal personal information, playing a dirty trick, taking possessions, extortion, threats against a family or friend, or coercion. If you see, hear, have knowledge of, or suspect bullying, take immediate action. Stop the bus in a safe location. Secure the bus. Shut off the motor, set the brake, and remove the keys. Activate four-way flashers if required. Call bus dispatch if assistance is needed. Take steps to protect the victim. Give a verbal command. Tell the bully, "Stop it! That behavior is not allowed on my bus." You are required to separate the students, even if you are not sure if it is bullying. This is mandatory. Depending on the severity of the situation, the driver may consider moving the student to the front where visible in the driver's mirror. Continue to monitor the behavior of the bully and the safety of others. If necessary, return to the school and arrange for the school principal to meet the bus. Immediately report to the bus manager and school principal at the end of the route. Now we will discuss child abuse. All school bus drivers are mandatory reporters and are required by law to report all suspected child abuse to the Department of Human Services Child Welfare Division at 1-866-303-4643 or by calling 911 immediately. You are required to report when you are on duty as well as when you are off duty. The mandatory reporter requirements are in effect 24 hours per day, 7 days a week, all year long. Child abuse includes any unexplained or suspicious physical injury to a child, including any injury inconsistent with an explanation of how the injury occurred. Neglect, which causes harm to a child's health, welfare, and/or safety. Sexual activity with someone older than the child, abuse, sexual assault, or sexual exploitation. Mental injury, which harms a child's ability to think, reason, or have feelings. Threat of harm. Any reason to believe that the child has been exposed to any drug use. Now we will talk about some potential indicators of child abuse. If a child displays any of the indicators listed with an asterisk, make a child abuse report. If the child displays multiple indicators, a report should be made. Whenever you are in doubt, make a report. Here are some possible indicators. When asked, the student's explanation is not consistent with the injury. Sexual or concerning statements were made by the child. The child has bruises or physical injury. The child performed possible sex acts to self, like exposing, manual manipulation, etc. The child performed possible sex acts towards other students, like inappropriate touching, sexual playing, etc. The child performed acts of bullying. The child made threats of physical harm to others. Mental abuse. Neglect. A child displays a lack of trust and relationship difficulties. A child appears to have a core feeling of being broke or damaged. The child has trouble regulating emotions. The child acts either inappropriately adult-like or inappropriately infantile. The child displays privacy issues. When and how to report. If a child tells you they have been abused, you must immediately make a report. If you have reasonable concern that a child you have observed or have had contact with may have suffered any of these kinds of abuse, or if you suspect an adult has abused a child, make a report immediately after your route. When in doubt, report. DHS screeners are very open to consultation and can help you determine whether or not the incident is reportable. You must also immediately inform the bus manager. However, reporting to your supervisor does not release you from your legal obligation to report immediately to DHS or the police. You are not allowed to inform the parents of your DHS or police report. If a child is in danger due to their physical injuries, if there's an indication the abuser may come to the school or the bus to further harm them, or if you see any type of abuse in progress, call 911 immediately. If possible, provide for the immediate safety of the child. If you do not feel safe intervening, maintain visual observation, if safe. It is the responsibility of DHS and/or the police to investigate the suspected abuse. You are required to cooperate. the DHS or police representative questioning the student about possible abuse will determine if a bus driver may be present during the interview. If so, your role should be as a supporter for the child and not as an active participant. You are not allowed to reveal anything that is discussed during the investigation. Keep a written record of any DHS or police report you make and give a copy to your supervisor. Use the child abuse reporting form found on the school district website in the Secure Forms section. If you learn or suspect that a student has been sexually assaulted, whether the assault occurred on the bus or before boarding the bus, report it immediately to the Department of Human Services at 1-866-303-4643. Remember that sexual assault is child abuse and must be reported to the Department of Human Services or the police, even if it is child against child assault. Call bus dispatch or 911. Try to provide for the immediate safety of the victim. Have the victim take a seat near you. Determine if medical attention is necessary. Follow medical procedures as needed until help arrives. Try to comfort and calm the victim. To preserve evidence, discourage the victims from cleaning themselves and their clothing. Police can gather evidence from these items. Do not question the victim beyond basic facts. Leave this for law enforcement. However, if a student makes a statement to you about what happened, document exactly what the student says. Use their words, not your own. Do not disturb any potential physical evidence. Do not use the victim's name or release the victim's identity to anyone other than the bus manager, a school official, or law enforcement official. Remember that sexual assault is child abuse and must be reported to the Department of Human Services or the police, even if it is child against child assault. As a school bus driver and a mandatory reporter, you must follow child abuse reporting procedures even though the police are already involved. Call DHS at 1-866-303-4643 to make the report. Now we will discuss situations involving an unauthorized person or intruder or a kidnapping. The Oregon Administrative Rules state that a school bus driver shall not transport any person who is not a pupil, a teacher, or an official of the school while traveling the regular route unless authorized to do so by an authorized school official. If an unauthorized person attempts to or actually boards your bus, here are some strategies to try as you work to keep students and yourself safe. If an unauthorized person attempts to board the bus, try not to allow them onto the bus. Close the door and do not open it. Tell them our policy that only students assigned to this bus are allowed on the bus. Ask them to come to the driver's window. Stay calm. Be polite and professional. Try not to become emotional. Listen, talk with them, and try to solve the issue if possible. If you are unable to solve the issue, direct them to call bus dispatch. Notify bus dispatch of the situation, including a description of the person, your location, and if police notification is needed. If there is an intruder on the bus, call bus dispatch if it appears safe to do so. Stand up to establish authority and carefully approach the individual. Tell them our policy that only students assigned to this bus are allowed on the bus. Ask them to step off the bus. If they comply, immediately close the door. Direct them to the driver's window if they need to talk. If they do not comply, tell them again to get off the bus or you will call the police. Notify bus dispatch of the situation, including a description of the person, your location, and if police notification is needed. In some cases, a non-custodial parent or other unauthorized person may attempt to board the bus or try to take a student. Since you don't have a list of the people who students are authorized to leave with, you will have to try to keep the person off the bus and away from the student in question until you can get some guidance from bus dispatch or the school principal. If the individual gets on the bus and refuses to leave or attempts to physically take a student, notify bus dispatch or call 911 immediately. Ask for law enforcement to respond to your location. If a student is actually taken, be prepared to provide a detailed description of the person that includes their race, height, weight, hair color, facial hair, any tattoos, their clothing, and the direction they went after leaving the bus. Also give a detailed description of the student that includes their name, their school, their clothing. Did the student act like they knew the individual, etc.? And if they got in a vehicle, try to provide a description of the vehicle, the color, make, model, and license number of the vehicle. In this section of the training, we will talk about threats and suspicious objects. A threat is an expression of intent to do harm or to act out violently against someone or something. A threat can be spoken, written, symbolic, or communicated by video or social networking media. If you learn of a potential threat through something written on the bus or on a piece of paper, or receive a report from someone, or if you overhear a conversation or see a suspicious object, take it seriously. All threats and suspicious objects must be taken seriously and investigated to determine whether they pose a real danger to students or staff. If you see, have knowledge of, hear, or receive a threat of any kind, follow these procedures. Stay calm. Avoid creating a more dangerous situation. Assess the situation. Is the threat credible? Assessment in this kind of scenario is critical to determine if the threat is inside the bus or coming from the outside. Is the threat against a student, the driver, or the entire bus? Discreetly gather information from a person reporting the threat if feasible. Handle a written threat as little as possible to avoid disturbing possible fingerprints, and if the threat is on social media or electronic, try to save it or take a photo of it. Discreetly call bus dispatch or 911 if the threat seems credible. Make a plan. Decide to continue the route, modify the route, or stop the bus. If the threat is from outside of the bus, determine if a code yellow lockdown is required. If the threat is from inside the bus, determine if an evacuation is required. If you decide to stop the bus, you may decide it's prudent to mimic mechanical trouble rather than draw attention to the threat. Arrangements may be made to meet the bus at the school or another location to further investigate or provide support. Evacuate the bus if it seems safer to be off the bus than on the bus. If the threat involves an explosive device or bomb threat, follow the evacuation procedures for a suspicious object, as described on the following slides. If you notice or learn of an actual suspicious object, package, or device, whether on a pre- or post-trip inspection, outside or inside the bus, on a field trip, or on a regular route, take immediate protective actions. Do not touch, move, or pick up any suspicious object or device. Stop the bus in an open area, away from buildings or other hazards if possible. Secure the bus. Shut off the motor, set the brake, and remove the keys. Activate four-way flashers if required. Quickly and authoritatively instruct everyone to immediately turn off cell phones, since in rare cases this can detonate an explosive device. Do not use your radio unless there is a life-threatening emergency, such as a person who is not breathing or who has suffered a heart attack and immediate emergency assistance is required. Carefully evacuate everyone off of the bus, using evacuation routes that keep students away from the device or suspicious object. Follow evacuation procedures. Assemble at least 1,000 feet away from the bus and device if possible. Move farther away if it is feasible. After After you've evacuated, find a way to send for help. For example, a passing motorist could be instructed to go to a nearby home or business and call 911, or a neighbor could be asked to call 911 from a landline. Account for and supervise all students. Follow student accountability and release procedures. Work to reassure students. Remain calm and in control. Cooperate with first responders. Contact bus dispatch when able. And prepare to follow transfer procedures. Now we'll talk about aggressive people and fights. If you are confronted by an angry or verbally aggressive person, here are some strategies you may use to try to de-escalate the situation and work toward keeping yourself and your passengers safe. We will look at 3 strategies: directional de-escalation, verbal de-escalation, and getting help. Directional de-escalation strategies. If the aggressive person is not on the bus, close the door and do not open it. Ask them to come to the driver's window. If, however, they are already on the bus and you are able to stop in a safe place, you may ask them to step outside with you to talk or to sit and talk. Try to create some distance between them and you and your passengers. Give 3.5 feet of space if possible. Individuals in crisis need more space than usual. Verbal de-escalation strategies. Stay calm. Be polite and professional. Try not to become emotional, defensive, or angry. Lowering your voice can sometimes calm the situation. Listen actively. Talk with them and try to solve the issue if possible. Ask questions to show you are paying attention. Offer help. This might take the edge off of the anger. Avoid being judgmental. Don't threaten or outshout the individual. And finally, get help. If you are unable to solve the issue, direct them to call bus dispatch if they are not on the bus. Notify bus dispatch of the situation as soon as is safely possible. Now let's talk about physical aggression. If someone physically threatens you or attempts to assault you, use all available opportunities to avoid the confrontation. Every situation is different. Here are some strategies to try. Call bus dispatch or 911 as soon as safely possible. Consider instructing a passenger to call 911. Use words to try to de-escalate the aggressor. Say things like, "Stop! I don't want to fight. Don't hit me. Get away from me. Leave me alone." Stay respectful. Don't get to their level. Create physical distance from the aggressor. Try to move away. Don't square up with the aggressor, as this can be deemed as a challenge. And don't point your finger at the individual. Use 2 fingers to direct if necessary. If the individual confronts you with nose-to-nose intimidation tactics or shoves you, back down. Walk or move away if possible. If the individual proceeds to engage you, physically defend yourself if necessary, using the lowest level of response to safely neutralize the crisis. Try to avoid an assault by using an object such as your arm or a clipboard or your leg as a shield, or by stepping, leaning, or moving out of the way. If the aggressor has grabbed a hold of you, try to get released from the hold. Use verbal commands and distraction. "Let go of me!" and a loud noise or statement to divert attention. Try to identify a weak point. Use full body leverage and momentum if the aggressor has you in an arm grab or chokehold. For an arm grab, use your free hand to assist you in the release. Quickly grab your other hand and lever out. For a chokehold, quickly raise both arms, turn in either direction, and step slightly away. Once released, move away from the aggressor. Do not continue to engage him or her physically. Consider the viability of evacuating the bus or telling passengers to move to another area on the bus. If 2 or more students are fighting or an individual is out of control, use the lowest level of response that will safely neutralize the crisis. You are not required to put yourself at risk, but must behave in a reasonably prudent manner to try to reduce danger. However, if there is a fight, you must intervene. Every situation is different. Here are some strategies to try. Stop the bus in a safe location. Secure the bus. Shut off the motor, set the brake, and remove the keys. Activate four-way flashers if required. Take charge. Use a calm, firm, and authoritative voice. Do not yell. Use specific verbal commands such as, "Stop fighting. Sit down, now. John, go to the front." Use names if possible. Use distractions such as a whistle, a loud noise, or you may even clap your clipboard against the seat to get their attention, and this might possibly disrupt the fight. Disperse bystanders. If feasible, move other students to a neutral location on the bus. Evacuate the bus if necessary. Follow evacuation procedures and give instructions. Call bus dispatch or 911. If the fight continues, keep trying verbal interventions. Keep a safe distance, working to keep yourself and other students safe. If the fight stops, separate students to different locations on the bus. Tend to first aid needs. Follow medical procedures. If necessary, return to the school and arrange for the school principal to meet the bus. Immediately report to the bus manager and school principal at the end of the route. And finally, we will talk about weapons, gunshots, and hostage situations. Because there are a wide variety of possible weapons situations, the following concepts should be viewed only as a general guide. You must adapt your response based on any situations you may encounter. Address your own safety first so that you can then better protect students. In this training, we will explore situations involving violence or gunshots near the bus, weapons or concealed weapons on the bus, shooting or stabbing on the bus, and hostage situations. Let's start with violence or gunshots near the bus. If you hear gunshots or if there is a shooting or stabbing or other violent situation near the bus, use extreme caution. Quickly assess the situation, taking appropriate actions to increase your own safety and the safety of your students. Instruct students to take cover and implement a code red lockdown. Follow those procedures. Quickly decide whether you can drive away from the area or if you should pull over and take cover. Call bus dispatch or 911 as soon as safely possible. Stay calm. Reassure students as you are able. Be prepared to take additional protective actions as conditions change. Now let's talk about weapons or concealed weapons that might be on the bus. If you learn that a person is in possession of a weapon on your bus and they have not yet displayed it or used the weapon to threaten or attack others, here are some general guidelines to consider. Stay calm. Avoid creating a more dangerous situation. Consider how your response could escalate the person with a weapon. Pretending you don't know about the weapon could be a useful strategy. Discreetly call bus dispatch or 911 if possible. Make a plan. Decide to continue your route, modify your route, or stop the bus. If your decision is to stop the bus, you may decide to mimic mechanical trouble. Stop in a safe location. Do not directly approach the individual unless you know the student and feel comfortable asking for the weapon. Now let's talk about the scenario of a shooting or a stabbing on the bus. If there is a shooting or stabbing on the bus, take defensive measures based on the situation to increase the safety of yourself and your students. Call 911 or bus dispatch as soon as safely possible. You might say, "Stabbing on the bus, my location is..." Stop the bus, secure the bus, shut off the motor, set the brake, and remove the keys. Activate four-way flashers if required. Take cover and implement a code red lockdown or evacuation if necessary. Follow procedures. Do not confront the individual unless they are attacking and it is clear to you that it would be safer for you to try to disable the attacker than not to. Tend to medical needs if you are able to. Be prepared to take additional protective actions as conditions change. And contact bus dispatch as soon as safely possible. And finally, let's talk about hostage situations. If you are threatened with a weapon, or if you or others are held against your will or taken hostage, try to remain calm. Use extreme caution. Do not confront the hostage taker unless he or she begins shooting or attacking others and you feel it is safer to try to disable them than to flee. Here are some strategies to consider depending on the circumstances. Stay calm. Do nothing to create a more dangerous situation. Get help. Discreetly call bus dispatch or 911 if possible. Pull over and stop the bus. Secure the bus, shut off the motor, set the brake, and remove the keys. Activate four-way flashers if required. Cooperate. Follow the instructions of the hostage taker unless you feel that following their instructions would increase danger to yourself or others. Cooperate. Don't antagonize or argue with the captor or other hostages. Do not initiate conversation with the captor. If you are spoken to, cooperate and be concise. If possible, keep a safe, non-intimidating distance and avoid abrupt movements. If the hostage taker appears receptive, inform them of any critical medical issues that you are aware of. If allowed by hostage takers, provide first aid as best as you can. Treat your wounds first and then help others. If the hostage taker appears receptive, try verbal interventions. Talk quietly and evenly to the aggressor. Try to calmly negotiate the evacuation of students, treating injured, giving you the weapon, etc. Be prepared to wait. Elapsed time is a good sign. Generally, the longer a hostage situation continues, the less likely a hostage taker is to use violence. Be observant. Try to remember things you see or hear, such as the location and number of hostages, description of hostage taker, weapons, etc. This is important if you are released while others are still held hostage. Watch for the unexpected. Try to think of possible courses of action for various contingencies. If a rescue takes place, crouch down in a protective position. Follow code red lockdown procedures. If released, follow law enforcement instructions. As with all emergencies, remember to take extra precaution to protect yourself and your passengers. Err on the side of caution. Safety is always a priority. That will wrap up this Part 3 training on the third section of our school bus emergency plan, which covers protocols for situations involving threats and violence that a school bus driver may be faced with, such as a missing student, bullying, child abuse, sexual assault, unauthorized people, intruders, kidnapping, threats or suspicious objects, aggressive people or fights, and weapons situations. If you have any questions about these procedures, please contact your bus manager for clarification. Thank you.